Welcome, everyone. I am Isaura Gallegos, and I am excited today to see everyone joining us for the second talk in our series on climate change. Friendly reminder, this is being recorded. Just so that everybody knows. And as we are coming in, we're going to give a few minutes for folks who are joining to just give them a little bit more time to join. So if you could just jump in the chat, let us know where you're coming from. As an introduction, it's always really great to see and appreciate our community that comes from a number of countries, a number of states in the US. So if you could go ahead and just let us know where you're coming from. We have Jean, who's coming from Ohio. Welcome, Jean. Hi, Sarah, again, from the DC metro area. Washington, DC, Arizona, welcome, welcome. New York City, Rome, Georgia, Dublin, welcome. New York, excellent. It's so great to see everybody. A lot of New York. We have Seattle, Washington. Good morning to you. Early morning. Great. It's so good to see all the familiar faces, the new faces. So let's see, it's 11:01. So let's go ahead and get started. So as just a note of gratitude, I will pass it over to Kareem Gandhi in a second, but just thank you so much, Kareem, for helping to organize this and hosting this and also being a central part of the theme of this talk series. So thank you. And with that, I'll hand it over to you to get us started.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. If it's morning where you are, good morning. All right. It is an honor and a pleasure to introduce a very, very passionate teacher, all right, inside and outside the classroom for more than 3 decades. He is an Arizona STEM Acceleration Project Fellow promoting STEM in Arizona. He was a National Phys Tech teacher in 2021 and an Arizona Governor Celebration of Innovation Award winner last year. And above all, he is a proud father and a grandfather. It is an honor to introduce you, David. David Wirth, please.
Hey, thank you, Kareem. Appreciate that. So thanks also, Isha, Sarah, and Eric for creating this space to talk about physics. I'm honored to be here, and I hope that I can add something to value this morning. So I teach at Millennium High School in Goodyear, Arizona. It's a suburb that's just west of Phoenix. Been there about 24 years. I love the high school, great students, great families, and very supportive community. I've had a chance to teach many siblings and many families throughout the years. This is my schedule, what I teach. You can see I have lots of preps, but I love the variety. You know, it's really the life of a physics teacher these days, lots of preps. But I also have really good kids as well. I've taught 32 years overall, still enjoy it. And this is how I know that I enjoy it. I still go to yard sales on weekends looking for physics stuff for my classroom. On vacations, when I'm supposed to be relaxing, which I'm relaxing, I still looking for physics examples and things to bring back to my students. So I'll stay in teaching physics as long as I can, as long as I'm still having fun.
Hey, David, sorry to jump in and interrupt real quickly. Would it be possible to expand your slides? They're a little small right now, or I think it's speaker notes or presenter view. Folks are having a tough time looking at the beautiful image you're sharing.
Can I see my notes? Holy
yes.
cow. Okay, let me try it again. I appreciate you letting me know that.
Sure. No problem.
How about this one? Is that better?
Perfect. Technology.
Okay.
We did a practice run, folks, before this, and everything looked perfect. So
thank you. This is my you see my tricks now, the trade there, see my notes there. This is my grandson Theo, and my daughter bought a book, Quantum Mechanics, that I read to him as a baby. And after reading this book, if you ask Theo what he was doing, he would always say, "I'm doing physics." Whether he was playing, eating, watching TV, taking a bath. "Theo, what are you doing?" "I'm doing physics." Until he discovered Legos. Now his response is, "I'm playing with Legos." We all know that Legos are just another branch of physics, so we're going to be okay there. So I look forward to doing physics with you this morning as it relates to power production and climate change. So why me? You know, I enjoy talking about physics and I enjoy talking about climate change, but I'm definitely not an expert in climate change. My connection is that the physics teacher had called for articles on climate change and sustainability in the intro of physics classes. So I wrote an article for the physics teacher and it was published in September of last year. The article describes several activities that I've done in the classroom around clean electrical power production. My goal today is to discuss some of these activities and provide some additional insights and student experiences. Please realize that the activities I present today are for many years of teaching, and I don't do all these activities in any one year in any one class. You know, just not enough time to do all that stuff in most physics classes in just 1 year. So hopefully you can take one or two things away today that you might be able to try in your own classes. So, you know, Mark gave a great talk a few weeks ago on climate change. These are two of his slides. And these slides make a great segue to my presentation. Mark spoke about finding graphs that give a clear picture of what's going on. I like Mark's choice here. You can see from the first graph that electrical production is a top producer of anthropogenic carbon emissions. So it makes sense to talk about this topic with our students when discussing the greenhouse effect and climate change. And the second graph are the top solutions to this problem. Number 2 is to invest in clean energy and efficiency and improve efficiency. And that's where the activities I'm going to speak about today fit in. Activities that will help students to better understand clean energy and power production. From the EPA website, this shows a graph of carbon emissions since 1990. You can see that we're doing better. And the reason is investment in clean energy and end-use efficiency. From Mark's talk last week, he talked about the price of renewable energy is dropping fast. And there's a ton of good news about renewable energy, which is part of the solution. So we're headed in the right direction. Still have a long ways to go, though. So let's begin. Before I talk about power production, I want students to understand what power actually means. I don't know about you, but even my top students really don't understand the basic meaning. So to help them understand what power is so that it can be applied when we talk about energy production, I talk about power in sports. My kids like sports. They play a lot of them play sports. I talk about power in football and how important it is to have power in that sport. We talk about the NFL Combine. And one of the challenges in the NFL Combine is called the bench press challenge, where the athletes have to lift 225 pounds. They do it as many times as they can until muscle fatigue takes over. And to me, that's incredible. I'm not sure if I can even lift the bar at this stage of my life. There's a video of Stephen Paella in 2011. He's able to lift 225 pounds 49 times in a minute, which is incredible. And I challenge the kids to calculate his power. You know, you have to use some estimation skills. Watch this video and calculate the power. I don't often give a lot of instructions in my labs and activities. I just have them apply the things they've learned and do their best to find the answer. So after some time, And we usually have a discussion about how high he lifts that bar, because what they typically do is just take the length of his arm, which they can look it up online, and they use the length of the arm to figure out how high he lifted the bench press. Well, that's not quite right. So after some discussion, they usually end up about 300, 400 watts of power, which is about right. And we talk about this power, what it actually means. And then I challenge them and say, okay, how much power can you produce? How does your power compare to professional athletes? And I give them the challenge to do something in the classroom, whether it be climbing stairs, doing sit-ups, push-ups. They're not really motivated, maybe curl a water bottle. So they can find the vertical height that they lift something, and the time it takes, and figure out their own power. And I throw out the 2,000 watts challenge. Can you produce 2,000 watts of power? And this gets some students motivated. Of course, I let them know that it needs to be safe. Don't want anybody injured today. Don't want any pulled muscles. Keep it safe. This is a few pictures of my classroom of students trying to perform this challenge. You can see there's kids on the left-hand side that are stair-stepping in place. There's kids on the right doing push-ups or trying to do push-ups. I play on my speaker, I play Eye of the Tiger from Rocky. And if you walk in my classroom during this lab, it looks like a gym in there. And the kids usually end up with results, end up somewhere between 10 watts if they curl a water bottle, up to over 1,000 watts if they run up the stairs, and they have fun. I had one student who is very athletic and very competitive, and he went home and thought about the 2,000 watt challenge all weekend, and came back after the weekend and looked me straight in the eye and said, "Mr. Wirth, 2,000 watts, it's not possible." So it's great to see kids that are thinking about physics, in their own time outside of the classroom. And that makes teaching physics really fun. I want to note that this lesson plan here is on that website that's posted. It's the ASAP STEM Acceleration Project. It's a very innovative project led by Mike Vargas here in Arizona. And they've collected, have teachers have written over 1,500 K through 12 STEM centered lesson plans, and get some great lesson plans in there. And this one can be found there as well. So with this activity, I want my students to really understand what power is. First of all, that power is a rate, not a quantity. You can't say you've done 2,000 watts of power. No, you're doing 2,000 watts of power. Don't stop, otherwise you're not. I like to relate power to food calories. My kids love Dutch Bros. I don't know if you guys have Dutch Bros where you guys are at, but they like their coffee and their smoothies. And they often come to school with these sugary laden drinks each day. And they have quite a few calories. So it's kind of fun to talk to them and ask them, how long would you have to perform your power producing exercise, your activity? For example, how long would you have to climb stairs to burn off that 300 calories? It helps them to understand what power actually is. My students also like money, like most students. Many have part-time jobs. Here in Arizona, the minimum wage is about $14 an hour. And I talk to them and say, all right, let's say you open a power production business. And I'm gonna go ahead and buy energy from you. You produce it, I'll buy it from you. The going rate is about 15 cents a kilowatt hour. So I'll pay you 15 cents a kilowatt hour. Would you do it? And after a little bit of thought, students think to themselves, I can produce 1,000 watts by climbing these stairs. And if I do that for an hour, it's basically 1 kilowatt hour. Wait a second, 15 cents an hour? No, I can't do that. So I think an activity like that helps the students to get a better understanding of power, and also, a better appreciation for electricity and the cost of electricity. Now the students have a better understanding of power. Let's get into renewable energy. Please forgive me. The first half of my presentation is mostly solar power. I mean, I live in the desert. We have 300 plus days of sunshine here. We go months and months without seeing a cloud. So it works really well here in Arizona. So I start with a very, very simple activity, very easy to set up. I give the students a photovoltaic, a small submersible water pump, low voltage, and a beaker of water. And I instruct the students to find the efficiency of the PV. Don't give them a lot of instructions. Just say, hey, you've learned some physics now, apply it and find the efficiency of that PV.
Tak lepiej brzmi ten.
It's fun to watch them go outside and connect the PV to the pump for the first time and see that water come out almost immediately. It makes a nice water feature. And the students, what they typically do is for the input power, they look up the radiance of the sun, multiply by the area of the PV. And then for the output, they usually use potential energy in a stopwatch to figure out the output power. And they find the efficiency of this system. And the efficiency is usually not very high. But it gets them to start thinking about energy and the transfer energy, where it comes from, where it goes, and how a lot of useful energy is lost in that process. The next activity I do in my class is I got this idea from a modeling workshop I took at Arizona State University. My workshop leader was Corey Waxman. And the idea is to build a solar-powered vehicle. It could be a car, it could be a boat, train, plane, or I even throw out the challenge of a blimp, make a solar-powered blimp. I give them old building supplies, old Legos, Connects, erector sets. Sometimes the toys that my kids no longer use kind of disappeared from the house, and find lots of things at yard sales I spoke about earlier. My county also has a STEM resource center. And what they do is they take Amazon returns and then they give those to teachers to use in their classroom, and they encourage you to use them for STEM activities. And so I've gone a couple of times, and every time I've gone, I look for anything related to PVs, mostly, solar powered lights. In fact, in that picture, you can see a solar powered light towards the back. And the idea is to give those kids this stuff from Amazon, have them take it apart and make something useful out of it. In this case, a solar powered vehicle. I love having students build things, to get their hands dirty, to use their creativity. You see in the back that young lady's using a drill. Teaching physics brings out a lot of joy. But I've got to admit that teaching students how to use a drill for the first time is also very satisfying. I did have a challenge with this project. Students would build these beautiful cars, spend lots of time, looked great. And they would go outside and they just wouldn't move. They had the wrong gear ratio, too much torque for that poor little motor. And I realized part of the reason is I didn't give them the best materials. I mean, part of the reason was they didn't quite understand the ratios with gears, but also the materials weren't the best either. So I found a solution. I found this, I used them for the first time this past year. They're actually gearboxes I found on Amazon. And they worked really well. In fact, they worked a little too well. They almost made this project a little too easy. You know, you hook up the motor to a PV, the gearbox to a PV, you attach some wheels, and you had a car in no time at all. So I'm still trying to figure out this project, trying to keep it challenging, but also having the frustration level at the right level, if you know what I mean. This was a pretty impressive truck. These students went above and beyond. 3D printed frame, cardboard body, spring suspension, LED lights, the works. In fact, they were so proud they signed their names on it. This last month's issue of the physics teacher challenged us to create opportunities for students to have proud moments. And I saw several of these proud moments in this project. These students were very resourceful. They used all the things I provided, including the lid from the Legos container to make a boat. And they challenged me to find a place where I could actually have them float their boat. It worked really well, though. This is another proud moment. These students made a school bus. And you can see the A in STEAM there, can't you? And if you look closely, you look at the driver of the bus, it's a picture of me. Not sure exactly where they found that picture, but I'm the driver. And they had a lot of unsavory characters in the back of that bus. The kids wanted to have a race. So you see their hands are up. They're trying to block the sunlight just before the race began. And it was fun. It was interesting, though. Somehow these cars would always drive into the shade where they would immediately stop. So I'm not sure if that was physics or that was Mr. Murphy showing up. So the overall goal of this project was to find the efficiency of the system. Again, I go back to efficiency quite a bit in these projects. The input was pretty easy. The input energy, once again, we find the solar irradiance and multiply by the area. And but the output was more difficult. Most kids wanted to just find the kinetic energy of the car and divide by the time. Unfortunately, that doesn't work for the constant velocity vehicle. This was hard for the level of this class that I taught it at, but it got students to think. And students finally figured out that in order to find the output power, they need to use a motion detector to find the time required for the car to get up to speed. Once again, the efficiencies of cars were pretty low, but it got students thinking about energy flow again. And where does that energy go? Where does it come from? Where does it go? And yes, we had a solar power blimp this past year. I was so excited. First time I've had one. It was fun to watch the students struggle with this project. They brought in balloons, more balloons, and more balloons. They were having weight struggles. They had a lot of dead weight on this balloon. And so I saw that frustration level gets to the point where I needed to intervene. And I talked to them about dead weight. You know, do you really need a 3-inch piece of duct tape to hold that wire? Wouldn't that little 1/2-inch piece of duct tape work? Do you really need those extra strings on those balloons? Couldn't you cut those off? And so the students got the idea and systematically went through their projects and got rid of a lot of dead weight until they reached equilibrium. And you can see equilibrium right there in that picture. But then a little breeze came through and blew up on top of the roof. And then back and forth and then over the roof. And then it went over the other side of the building. Students took off running. And anytime you have your high school students running during lunch after a science project, you have a good thing going. Students came back about 5 minutes later, And they said, Mr. Wirth, it's over the tennis courts. I said, well, go get it. And they said, you don't understand, Mr. Wirth. So I walked over to see what was going on. This is what I found. Yes, it had gone way, way up. It was moving north at a really fast rate. And I don't think it was being powered by just the solar powered propeller either. It caught a little gust of wind there. I was a little concerned because we have an Air Force base right next door to us. But fortunately, I never heard anything about that afterwards. Everything turned out okay. Quite the experience. It was quite the event at lunchtime, and something the students will talk about for a long time. But next time, I'm going to make sure that that balloon has a tether on it. Another activity I do with solar is I actually have solar panels on my house. It came that way. I was pretty excited about that. And I actually go to Google Earth and take a picture of solar panels on my own house. Some of you may think I'm crazy for doing that, but the kids are good kids. And I challenge them to go ahead and determine the power production of these solar cells for a month, for a given month. And again, they look up the irradiance, solar irradiance, they find the area, efficiency, and they calculate the power output. And then I compare the energy that they get to an energy app on my cell phone that records energy produced. And surprisingly, they get pretty close. I also ask them to calculate how much money I save each month on my electricity bill from these solar cells. Not bad there either. Same idea with the PVs at our high school. Most of the high schools in our areas have covered parking with solar cells. You can see an aerial view of the high school there. You can see there's a large part of it that are covered with solar cells. So we usually meet right here in the middle, and I ask the students to go ahead and calculate the power output of these solar cells from our campus. And a lot of them usually go back to Google Earth and use that to find the area. This past year, some students decided to take off and go and actually count them individually. And they kind of got in trouble from the security guard for doing that. So I'll have to watch them a little closer next time. But they come back with the power that these solar cells produce. And to give them more meaning and scale this up a little bit, I asked them to determine how many PVs would be necessary to power a mid-sized city. And they, after some time, they come up with an answer somewhere close to 10 square miles, which to me seems baffling. It seems huge. Until one day I was talking to a contractor friend of mine, and I told him about this question that I had asked my kids, and the answer that they gave me, 10 square miles, and he was not surprised. He suggested looking at one of his projects on Google Earth, and this is what I found. This is in about 50 miles west of where our school is. Up in the upper part, you can see this Palo Verde nuclear power plant that has three reactors. It's the largest power plant in the country. And you can imagine that uses quite a bit of area. Well, that pales in comparison if you look at these solar cells. 3.5 miles long right there. Can you imagine that? This contractor friend of mine says when he works on those things and you look out across them, it looks like an ocean because you can't see where it ends. So they're easily 10 square miles here for sure. During the power generation unit, I also have a prior student I taught about 15 years ago, who's now an electrical engineer for our local power company. And he's now a supervisor over 15 other engineers. And he comes in and speaks to my students about power generation. And talks about solar energy. You know, it's great, but also there's also challenges to it as well, as it creates an imbalance on the grid, as the supply doesn't always meet the demand. I'd love to have him talk about the duck curve. And the duck curve is a very interesting phenomenon that I'm actually going to save for the coffee hour, which will take place in a few weeks. Talk about that more. The short answer to the duck curve is the fact that we kind of produce solar power at the wrong times, and that the solution is to find a way to store that energy. And that was interesting. It's interesting to talk to the students about this, the importance of being able to store this energy, and so that we can use it at the right time. And I realized after a little research, I didn't realize this until I actually did the research. There's a lot of projects taking place in Arizona right now to flatten that duck curve. I recently read an article about a new pumped storage system that they're going to build in our states. It's a big project, basically, to create a new lake and a pump and power generation system. Also read about we have a new battery storage system near those solar cells that we just spoke about that can store 1 gigawatt hour of energy. The same energy as running our one of our reactors at the nuclear power plant for an hour. Not a bad start. So again, these are very relevant and applicable examples that can be used in a physics classroom. And I think it makes it interesting for the students to see problems that are taking place right now and not 200 years ago. Okay, I want to give you one more PV example. In teaching IB physics, which, by the way, I love it because I get these students for 2 years and I get to really know them, get to know them well. At the end of the second year, they get to do an individual investigation. They come up with the idea, they design it, and they implement it. This young lady knew that dust. She knew that we have a lot of dust in Arizona. That's not hard to realize. Our house is always dusty. You dust it the next day, it's still dusty. You can't keep the dust out. And the student wanted to find the relationship between the dust on the solar panel and the energy produced. And she put a lot of time into developing a procedure that would work. And she got great results, as you can see there. Found a good relationship. So this could easily be a modeling activity for a classroom. Okay, let me stop for a little while. I'll give you a chance to maybe ask a few questions, maybe even give me some suggestions or maybe some additional ideas. I'll turn it back to Kareem at this time.
Wow, David, thank you so much. I can see you have a very nice hands-on approach. Now, after all that you do and some of the questions that were asked before in the registration part, I guess many are curious, how do you incorporate climate change into your classroom? I guess your classroom literally is physics, chemistry. It's just about everything there. How do you incorporate climate change? How do you address it?
Well, Kareem, the one class I really address it is are you talking about what is climate change, or?
Yeah, what is climate change? Or, how do you address it? How does how can physics play a role? How can it be incorporated into the physics classroom or into any science classroom for that matter?
Yeah, you know, we are bound by the standards that we teach, but there is some wiggle room sometimes. But I will tell you that in my IB class, it's set up perfectly for that exact topic. It actually the objectives are actually to teach about climate change and talk about the absorption of the the sun, the energy from the sun and turn it into infrared, and the absorption, the atmosphere, and re-emitting in different directions. And that's part of the objectives for the IB physics. But honestly, every 7 years they reevaluate the IB physics curriculum. And guess what was taken out this next turnaround? Yeah, that was taken out of the IB physics. So I will need to figure that out, Kareem. But it is an interesting question because we are bound with our time, and I'll have to figure that out.
I think, yes, you're right. We're bound by the curriculum guidelines and things of that nature. Here's a little funny, looking at your classroom, you seem to have a lot of equipment. What is your budget like? I'm curious, and I'm sure many teachers out there are curious. What is your budget like? I mean, is this school provide quite a bit, or is it like most of us teachers, we go out there and we purchase it?
I write lots of grants, and usually I found that if I have a good idea and it makes sense and it's good for students, it helps students, usually I'm pretty successful with those grants. And also, I think most high schools, you're not really given a budget. You're kind of told if you want something, come and ask for it. And my high school's actually been pretty supportive of that. And again, if I go to my administration with a good idea, I'm usually pretty usually supported. So I've got just about every probe you can ask for. Now, I've been teaching for a long time, and I think it does take some patience as you build up your supplies and equipment. It does take time. And every year I'm just trying to think about, okay, what else do I need? What else do I want? And try to just make it a little better every year.
Thank you, David. If there's anyone else, please type it in the chat if you be glad to. If you have any other questions. Barbara Kukov is asking, in the discussion about gear ratios, do you have lessons that tie back to simple machines?
We do, yeah. We talk about in the honors physics class, which is that is taught. That's an algebra based class. It's a pretty basic physics class, but we do talk about circular motion, and they should be able to apply the things they've learned to figure out that gear ratio, but they don't always do that. But usually if a student gets really frustrated, I'm talking about that frustration level, we can usually talk it through. It's, as a teacher, it's important to, I guess, to monitor that frustration level. Students who are making progress, you kind of leave them alone. But they get to the point where they are not making progress and they're about ready to give up. And maybe that's the point where you start talking about, let's remember the things we've learned. How can we apply this? We got a large gear and a small gear. We put them together. What's going to happen? And how does torque apply to that? So I probably need to do some more of that with before they actually get outside and not have success. Although that's also a good thing to have them fail sometimes and requires them to go back and think about what happened there.
Thank you. Laura Markham's asking, how do you tie the power generation back to climate change?
Well, we talk about the fact that in the past the power generation has created a lot of greenhouse gases, and relate that to how that can affect the climate. I think it's also important to realize that these renewable energy sources that we talk about in the classroom are not always perfect. They're not always the complete solution. That there's more to the problem than just that.
Mortimer is asking, do you have any lesson plans on wind power and wave generated electricity?
Ask me that in about 20 minutes. That's I like talk about that next. That's a great segue. Can I move on to the next part? All right, thank you, Kareem. Appreciate that. All right, let's talk about wind power. I really like these Kid wind turbines. They're pretty cheap and they're very versatile. And you can do a number of experiments with them. You can, if you look in the middle, there's basically a motor, which is the turbine in the middle. And then you can adjust the number of fins you want to use. These are cardboard pieces or balsa wood. You can change the size of the fins. You can vary the angle of the fins. So you can do lots of variation with these wind turbines. So, find the relationship between power generated and whatever you want to change on there. It's a great opportunity for modeling. Something I do in my classroom is back to talking about efficiency again. This equation can be derived pretty easily with kinetic energy. And I ask the students to find the overall efficiency of this wind turbine system. And so, they know the velocity and the area of the blades, which are pretty easy to, well, let me talk about velocity in a second. But if you know the velocity in the area, you can find the power, the theoretical power output. If you know the velocity before entering the blades and afterwards, you can subtract the two energies and find the power. I should say subtract the two powers and find the overall power output theoretical. Now to make it put a little twist in this experiment. I have the students figure out the air velocity themselves. I just challenge them, figure out the air velocity, and they come up with lots of different techniques to find the air velocity that they need for this experiment. And after they try lots of different techniques, and I should say some are very successful, I let them know that I actually have a device that measures airspeed, and they're not real happy with me about that. But they can find the theoretical power input and get the power output using an energy probe, and then find the efficiency of this system. This young lady in the IB program, for her individual investigation, she wanted to find the relationship between the angle of the blades and the power output. I was impressed with all the time that she spent devising a system that would measure the angle, and did a great job, and she got a pretty good strong relationship there. She had to limit the range of the angles because the turbine would only work for a range of certain angles, and this is what she came up with. This is Hoover Dam between Arizona and Nevada. We used to drive over the dam with our cars. And my kids would love making jokes because they could use the word dam without getting in trouble. They've since closed this dam to cars after 9/11 and built a large bridge which spans the canyon now. As you know, the drought has had a huge impact on our water supply in the Southwest. Lake Mead behind the dam is about 35% capacity at this time. And you see that this picture on the right is vastly different from many years earlier. Water enters these giant penstocks and gains kinetic energy as it falls and turns giant turbines at the bottom. One of my students observed that this lower water level and lower potential energy must affect the power produced by the turbines. And he wanted to design an investigation to determine the relationship between the drop height of the water and the power generated. On the left is a diagram from his lab report, and he used the Kidwind turbine again. Like I said, they're very versatile. And he basically stuck spoons into those holes where the blades would normally go. And the experiment on the right is his final setup there. You can see at the bottom there, he used cups that would allow him to consistently adjust the height. And this, you can see there's a sign right here, basically a warning to stay away because it'll flood the area if you mess with it. This is an old water jug I got from my garage that I donated to the cause. And he was able to consistently get this thing to work. But if you back up a little ways, he spent many hours getting the system to work, adjusting, modifying, repositioning, spilling water, tweaking, spilling more water. And the celebration on the right is very genuine for this young man. This is just after he got to work for the first time, and I got to tell you, he was ecstatic. And that's why we want students to be challenged and to struggle, because that makes success that much more meaningful and worthwhile. And I will tell you as a side note that after this experiment, this young man developed a great skill for siphoning water. This is the lab. These are the results he came up with. Pretty good relationship. And I imagine it's a lab like this could probably be done on a larger scale. You probably could design something that would allow students to do something very similar. You probably wouldn't want this setup here, although it's a great setup for what he did. You probably want something that is maybe a little easier to work with. This is an activity that I did many years ago at the community college. This is Dwayne Despian's idea at Estrella Mountain Community College. And I think I'll save that for later, maybe a coffee hour time to talk about that one. But basically the idea is to create your own hydro-powered turbine. All right, as stated earlier, another way to reduce man-made carbon emissions is to be more efficient on the end use, to conserve energy at home. And to educate my students about end use, I have them create an energy audit of their own home. Their goal is to evaluate the energy consumption in their own homes and then to write energy audit reports with suggestions to the homeowners, which are their parents. They begin by completing an online energy audit provided by the local power company. They usually get some suggestions from that. I then have them find their top 15 energy consuming appliances and approximately how many hours they use that appliance in a given month. This is usually done at the end of the year, so I usually choose the month of April. They research the power rating of each of these appliances, the cost of electricity, and determine the cost for the month, and make a spreadsheet. By the way, this is a great time to teach them how to use spreadsheets and the power of the spreadsheets. If you look at this spreadsheet here, one thing I see missing is maybe a water heater. Not sure. Maybe it's a gas water heater. I see that these guys like toast, half-hour a day of toast. It seems like a lot of toast, but I like toast too. Here's a quote from the analysis of this project here from this report. It says, another thing I would also recommend is to control how much energy is used by turning off lights or unplugging appliances that aren't currently being used. I think the parents should pay me money for having their kids go through this, huh? Wouldn't you love to have your kids turn off the lights every day? Here's another spreadsheet. This student did recognize the water heater, but it looks like it's on about 12 hours a month, $2.16. Pretty good deal for that water heater right there. So, get students to think about energy and how they use energy in their home, and to actually think about what they learned and how they can conserve energy in their homes. This student talked about taking shorter showers. That's a good thing. Leave the doors closed in the summertime. Once again, those parents owe me for that. And here's the energy audit that you're welcome to use that however you want. This student was pretty honest. He said, I wasn't very surprised by water heating. Me and my sister like hot showers. So at least they're being honest here. All right, lastly, I want to emphasize again that prior students, make great speakers. They're very honest with the students and tell it like it is. I mean, look at these great speakers. There's a young man in the Naval Academy in the upper left. This young lady is working on her PhD in aerospace engineering right now. This young man graduated from Stanford. This is our most recent graduate from MIT. And these students love, coming into the classroom, and they bring a lot of enthusiasm with them. They bring a powerful message. There's things like, I've sat where you now sit. I know what you're going through. I know you have some uncertainties, but taking physics is important. It helps you in college and in life. Take more physics or take more STEM classes if you can. Work hard, do your homework, listen to Mr. Wirth. How can you beat that message? I'm sometimes hesitant to give up class time to have guest speakers, but I'm always happy with the results they produce. So thanks again for having me. I really have enjoyed bringing you into my classroom, introducing you to my students, and discussing this very important and relevant topic. So Kareem, I'll turn it back over to you to wrap this thing up.
Thank you so much, David, for introducing your classroom, your innovative ideas, your love to play with cool toys, fun toys, bringing real life applications to physics. Thank you very much on behalf of the entire PoLS-T group, committee, and all of us here. Very grateful for your presentation. Thank you. Isa, all yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to add, David, one of the insights with the last part of your presentation that I really appreciate and want to highlight is how you build student agency when it comes to this broad problem of climate change. One of the things that we've been thinking about, and I've been thinking about, is this sense of helplessness sometimes with such a vast and complex problem that we can feel on the individual level. And it's so inspiring to see not only how you're teaching your students practical strategies and useful strategies, like this is how you use an Excel spreadsheet, but also raising that awareness and giving them a sense of agency that there are things that they can do in their day-to-day lives. So that is a great insight. That is such a challenging thing to do. So I'm grateful that you've shared that with us today. So thanks. With that, a couple of announcements. So 60 minutes, never enough to address all the questions and thoughts that are inspired by our wonderful speakers. So one of the things that is coming up is a coffee hour with David, and this will happen on April 1st. Sarah will go ahead and post the information for that in the chat. In addition, last thing, we're wrapping up about 4 or 5 minutes early, but if you have a second to take the quick, it's a 1-minute exit a survey so that you can post either additional questions, thoughts that you have about David's talk, that would be really wonderful and we'd really appreciate it. So with that, am I missing anything, Sarah?
I just put in the information about the third talk in the series.
Thank you. I just noticed Vandana on the chat. So yes, we have a third talk that is coming up in the series as well. And so you can find the information for that in the chat as well. Thank you, Sarah. So that's April 27th. All right, everyone, have a wonderful Saturday. Thanks so much. Bye.